Ricky Bobby. Why Ricky Bobby? Where does it even come from?
I think you've seen the movie, haven't you? Surely.
Which movie? I don't know if I have.
Talladega Nights?
No, I never saw it. No.
Oh, I can't go on with this. This is. I think we're done.
Ricky.
Oh no, just rolls off the tongue. I reckon it's a Joe Hollyman, Peter Dredge kind of
That sounds about
set up originally.
The
yeah,
Tassie crew.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, Tassie crew. Would you call them your mentors?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Absolutely. I worked with Dredgy for a long time.
Back at Bay of Fires, yeah?
Yeah, I mean that was really where I learnt everything about how to put Pinot together, particularly. So yeah, absolutely.
But you're from Tassie originally, right?
Yeah, so I grew up in Tonne Valley, went to school, Launceston, and then shipped off to university and studied winemaking in Adelaide. So I didn't really at that time know that I was going to, have a career in winemaking, but I, had to chuck at the stumps with it and cricket reference.
Thanks, mate.
Happy with that.
I am very happy. If you can just slot a few more into them, then you get started.
Let's see what else we've got. But yeah, obviously, had a great time and met heaps of great people, and the old wine bug kind of thing gets you, and ended up back in Tassie in 2010 after a little stint in America, and I was lucky enough to get a job at Bay of Fires working with Dredgy when he started there. So we had a lot of fun. Played a bit of golf.
I wouldn't have thought so.
Bit of golf out at Tam O'Shanter, and I'm very thankful for that opportunity.
So, while you're in Sydney to show the new releases of the 2-Tonne Tasmania range.
Yep.
So the Tonne, the Sith and the Ist, is that right?
Yeah, well, they have to be short because the brand name's long. So I figured if to fit them on a wine list, they have to be abbreviated. If anyone was wondering why that is.
So, okay, all jokes aside, Tamar Valley.
I wasn't a joke.
South and east.
Yep.
Very clever. So,
it's also the French word for east.
And just like Sith is for...
Yeah.
Is it sud? What's the French word for
south? I don't think it rolled off the tongue so good, so I avoided it. It was in the mix.
All right, so we've established that we love three-letter, shortenings of words.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about this project, because you started obviously Tamar Valley with 2 tons of fruit, I'm told, originally, and then in the subsequent years releasing these other wines, these sub-regional wines. For those that don't know much about Tasmania, I mean, a lot of people still think Tasmania is just a wine region, right? Which I think is a bit crazy. Yeah, it's a state, and there's lots of different regions within Tassie. What do you see in these 3 different wines, and I guess what was the genesis of this project?
Well, I mean,
and taste them.
Yeah, by all means, go for it. Mix them all together if you like, and that'll explain Tasmania as one region.
That makes sense.
Well, wait for that. It's coming soon. I guess I had the benefit, as we touched on, like working in a place like Bay of Fires, and Treasure kind of did the same thing. Well, definitely did the same thing where we had the luxury of all these wonderful sites and growers across Tasmania, and we would treat everything differently and look after everything in a certain way. Everything would be picked at different times, and you could see this real genuine kind of differentiation between those regions. And then obviously we'd come together to create consistency as a product. So Bay of Fires Pinot, and a lot of those kind of ideals have been emulated here, I guess, just as a small producer. And then over the years, we've kind of taken control of more elements of that.
What do you mean? So when you say the ideas have been like emulated, do you mean like the way you were making those wines, or?
I think like for me, like consistency. So particularly in the Tamar Valley, I hope people will see those wines as really consistent, and that's something that's really important to me. And the way I was brought up in winemaking was, this is a little while ago now. I'm getting a bit older, but that was super important. And you've got a vintage variation, and obviously you're going to see that in wine, and that's, I guess, the only element that I sort of want people to see so much here is the vintage changes, and of course the area it's grown in. So I guess, from the Tamar Valley, we take fruit from multiple sites. When I talk about taking more control, that is in the sense that we grow so much of the fruit for this, and I'm really proud of that. We've at a point now where T&B Pinot sits there and, you know, up to about 70% of it comes from our own vineyards, which we've, you know, farm ourselves. And
do you think that, because I think one of the real features of these wines, apart from just being delicious drinks, is like they're really superb value. But it's always been a real feature of these wines is I think they really punch above their price point. Is that largely down to the fact that you do have such control over those vineyards, or is it more of like a deliberate philosophy with the wines?
it comes from a place where, like, it deep down, if you break, you know, forget about everything. But I want these wines to offer value no matter whether it's been a really hard year or a really great year. And so that's the first step is, you know, when it's tough, everyone's still having a good time. You know, customers getting a great product. It's consistent. You guys can deliver that to your customers. And then in a good year, you know, everyone wins. Like typically, you know, there's a bit more wine to share around.
Yeah.
The wines have, you know, they're a little bit like what we're probably seeing here in these 24s is they're a little plusher, they're a little richer. The complexity is just dialed up a little bit. And I think that's the real key point to what I've done with these wines over a long time is hopefully offer value, you know, every time. And
yeah, but that's working backwards from the customer, which is really important too. And it's something that a lot of winemakers miss. They just go, well, this is some fruit I happen to get, and this is my costs. And so it needs to be on the shelf at $50 or whatever.
Yeah, it's a complex beast. We've sort of touched on it a few times over the last few days. I've worked with Loz for a long time, obviously. But I guess, you know, if fruit costs more in a different part of Tasmania, I don't see that as the customer's problem.
Yeah.
You know, I don't necessarily think that just because it's more expensive makes it better wine and therefore we should charge more. So that's, again, like going back to the real, you know, nuts and bolts of it. I don't think it's the customer's problem. It's something that I have to deal with in-house, and over time will resolve itself, hopefully. But I guess the way we counter that is where we grow so much of the fruit ourselves in the Tamar Valley, which is most of our production. And then we're still in these other regions, and we have some really great people that we work with in those areas, and it's becoming easier. It's been challenging over the years, and you get to, you know, a certain part of the year and the bills are coming in and you're starting to think about releasing wines and you think, oh, geez, maybe we should adjust some things here. But
do a deal to different drop, get some cash.
Yeah, at a high earlier, see.
Yeah.
And I guess we kind of just weather that storm. I think things are getting a little easier in Tassie now, but again, like I'm super happy where we are as a business. We're not as heavily, you know, knocked around by fluctuations in vintages or, you know, pricing adjustments or demand, because it's in-house. You know, there's so much of it in-house.
Just getting to that size when you can control everything makes such a difference. So
yeah.
So okay, so Tamar Valley is obviously that's where your vineyards are.
Yep.
That you manage your home, your wine, your bar, Havilah, etc. But then you got south and east over here as well, south and east. So talk to me a little bit of those wines, and I guess something that I've never heard anyone articulate really well. So here's a challenge. Is what are the simple differences in style that you'll see from Pinot across these different parts of Tasmania? So Tamar north, the east coast over there, and then south.
Well, firstly, I think like style is very much dictated by winemaker.
Oh, don't say that.
Yeah,
it's all about the vineyard, mate. It's not about Tamar.
Yeah, but you can
stop throwing a whole bunch of oak at it. And let the vineyard speak.
Exactly, but is that not what the vineyard wanted? I don't know. You know, it's a funny one. I think style is very much driven by winemaker, and I think these sit in there's a DNA that runs through these, and I think hopefully, you know, people working together a long time, you see that with, you know, a lot of the wines that I make, that there is a similar DNA through them. I guess in terms of, you know, regional differences is probably more how I'd put it. Like Tamar, for me, like I like picking on that earlier side. I want it to be crunchy, bouncy, have some energy. I think it's pretty easy to fall into a bit of a plummy kind of spectrum. And so for me, I want to be on that real red fruited kind of end. So yeah, I mean, winemaker decides that a little bit, but I think that's the best.
I think that's where Tamar naturally lends itself though.
But I think that's the best
fruit.
Yeah, that's the best part of Tamar. That's when it's good. It's bouncy and chewy and crunchy. And Then you go to we go south first. Like that wine there is driven by Derwent Valley fruit, which I think this year shows like really classically Derwent Valley, this sort of wild strawberry forest floor. There's this sort of alpine-y kind of feel to it, being a little bit more inland. And it has a lovely weight to elegance ratio. I think I really like that wine this year. And East Coast typically is dry down there. They've had some wet years, but this is back to where, it's probably more, classical in my mind. The wines they're a little bit plusher. They're a little like richer in feel. They have this sweetness of fruit, but then the tannin is like super interesting, real rocky and graphite. And that's something that's like, that's probably the biggest memory from East Coast, like, back whenever it was, we're making all these wines from different parts of the States. The East Coast, like the back palate just kicked on those because those soils are so rocky and hard and shallow.
It's an interesting, because there's a lot of, obviously you're tasting a lot of wines from Derwent Valley, Cold River Valley, etc.
Yeah.
But we're not trying a lot of Pinot from the East Coast area. So it's really interesting to taste that. That's great, eh?
The tannin, it's always the tannin, which is it's like you could probably pick them all. On the nose, it'd be a little bit different, but in the mouth, that always stands out like massively compared to like the tannin structure on that compared to the other two.
Yeah. You must get some Ks up driving through vintage between the three. Or do you fly down to Hobart?
Oh, jeez, I wish it was a train or something, but
do you have your own driver now?
Oh, come on, mate. I wouldn't be, if I did, I wouldn't be here talking to you. But yeah, a few Ks, but like, I mean, it's not hard to drive the East Coast. It's absolutely beautiful down there. Every time you go down there, you're just like, oh God, this is stunning. Like the Freycinet Peninsula and the hazards. As soon as you get over that hill, you're just like, oh yeah, this is nice. And that coastal road is amazing. So
roughly how long is it? What's
Tassie?
Tamar to east to south, what's like the driving time? So people can imagine how far away these vineyards are.
East Coast, like not actually that far away. You're probably an hour and a half from Launceston.
Yep.
Like easily. Derwent Valley and Cold River Valley, obviously they're 2 hours, 2 and a bit hours, depending on what the state government's up to with the roadworks. But it's pretty good at the moment.
I don't remember last time I spoke to you on the phone, you're like, I'm just sitting in roadwork traffic.
Oh, it's pretty good at the moment, so it's a bit easier. But yeah, I sort of like to tag it on with a little stay in Hobart for the night. So do the East Coast, they head down south and then stay in Hobart and then nip back up the next morning. So yeah,
it's got it all pegged. Mate, this is a wonderful trio of wines. You do see a thumbprint. I think for me, the feature of your Pinots is about purity. Is what I always see in these wines. I think they're lovely, they're bright, they're pure, and there's that lovely thumbprint of that small kind of whole bunch and tannic structural components of the wine. So I think becomes more and more balanced each time I look at the wines. So great trio. Interesting to taste next to each other. I don't know, that's how most people are going to enjoy the wines, obviously, but if you do get a chance to try these side by side, it's a great experience.
Imagine if someone sold them as a pack top.
Mate,
that's a really tremendous idea, Wayne.
You just jumped in my segue. You set it up. I was going to knock that down, mate.
Sorry.
God, it's not my first time. Just
roll it.
All right, do you have some other wines for us to taste? Where are those other Pinots? Oh, they're here. Cool. So you brought something for us. Come pour these out.
Oh, you want me to pour them out? Well, I'm not going to drink these either.
Do you want to drink them or?
I'll have a look at that for him.
So, mate, thank you very much for bringing this lovely old bottle of wine. Is that right? Yeah, there you go. 2017 Dog and Wolf. So this would have been, it was the Dog and Wolves that probably kind of put you on the map a little bit at the beginning, no?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Kind of wine reviews.
They went pretty well. But yeah, I mean, the thing with this wine, it came about in my second vintage, actually, 2014. It was like incredibly low yielding year. And there was a little vineyard that I was working with, and it was a really great year for Pinot, but there was bugger all of it. So it was too good for what I had in mind for, TMV. I mean, it's good. But I guess at that time, I wanted to do something a little bit more elevated, and it kicked off pretty well, and then had a few good years of that. But 2017 is one of the great vintages in Tasmania, and I kept a decent amount of this wine behind. We actually just sort of re-released it, and it all went to one of our good friends in Hobart, the Agrarian Kitchen, which is one of the best restaurants in Australia. But, you know, they were looking for some old wine, and I was like, look, I've got this stuff stashed. Like, wonderful year. So yeah, I guess that sounds.
And this was like a reserve bottling, I suppose, like a bit of an old school kind of.
In a sense, it was probably just starting to develop a different kind of concept or way of, you know, getting an elevated product. And the idea was always to, like, you know, incorporate or push as much whole bunch into these wines as I could.
Were they 100% bunch?
No, they moved around depending on the year. So, you know, they were 70, 80%. Sometimes back down to 50, depending on.
Looks like okay. It's a nice spot.
It's still alive. It's good.
Very much.
But yeah, I guess from there, you know, I worked, you know, made that wine consistently, and they came from 2 vineyards that I looked after, Waverley and Three Wishes, and that, I guess in my mind, the intention, like with growing these vineyards and sort of coming to know how to farm them and then get the wines together each year consistently, and you start to see, right, that does that. Oh, it did it again. Oh, wow. The intention was always in my mind to kind of split them apart and become, you know, their own separate bottlings, and that's where we are now. So from 2021, started doing that.
And that's what this lovely bottle is here. So that's a Three Wishes Pinot.
Yeah.
And so you got 2 different sites on opposite sides of the Tamar.
Opposite ends of the valley. Yeah.
And very different characters, and making a pair of Chardonnays and a pair of Pinots. And the first couple of releases have been stellar.
Yeah, it's very long-term, kind of long-ranging kind of project. I guess I want these wines to, you know, last a really long time, which is why it's, you know, cool to open something that is in that spot. And I guess that, you know, kind of pedigree is where I want these to be. They're not as, you know, driven by a whole bunch. It's more about like balancing purity and, you know, having a lovely balance between savory and fruit purity.
And are you making them differently to the TMV wines, or is it more about fruit selection or?
Oh, they're dialed in, yeah, and that's the benefit of having your own vineyards is you find the spots and then you tune the spots and you go back to them, and when you see something you're looking for, it's pretty exciting. So there
is it like the same part of the vineyard each year that you see, like, oh yeah, this is what will make the single vineyard stuff?
Well, Waverley's so small that it's actually pretty much like there's only one ferment for Waverley anyway. So, and those clones kind of ripen pretty close together. So you only get really one shot of that. Three Wishes, there's a lovely little patch of old MV6 in there. The rest is upright Pinot, which is very common in the Tamar Valley. But for mine, you need nice and vine age, and the yields kind of, you know, drop back a little bit. And then you can get, you know, you still need to really tune them up and can make really beautiful wines. But it's particularly this MV6 parcel. There's 6 rows of it. That's the one. And then plush it out with the more kind of, I guess, freshness from that upright Pinot next to it. So, yeah, that's kind of the theory.
Just on the 17 Dog and Wolf and thinking back to those early years of 2 Tonne Tasmania, we've gone on that journey ourselves of small business and trying to grow, trying to put these plans into place. Like, what was it like for you in those early days going out very much on your own?
I can't remember. I can't remember what I did yesterday. It was pretty exciting. I mean, there was a lot going on at the time, but I guess for me, the exciting part was like I'd made a few mistakes with like growing fruit, and I was starting to learn from those. So when we were getting to 17, I was starting to get a handle on actually how to farm a vineyard, because that was a skill gap. Like, as me as a winemaker coming out of university, and then you focus on the winemaking stream, and in corporate, you know, you kind of one or the other. You don't dabble across so much. But that was the exciting thing for me, is like on my weekends, I would go and farm a little vineyard. And, you know, and to do things well, you have to stuff them up a few times. And, you know, that's, Dog and Wolf was almost a safe space for that, because having these two sides. So I always had the luxury of like, getting them together and then having a consistent thing. You don't really have that anymore. If you've got these single site wines and you don't farm them well, or you don't make them well, and you don't release them, like it's very clear that maybe you don't know what you're doing, or you haven't quite learnt it yet.
Yeah.
So I guess it was a real kind of safe space in terms of like learning and my development, particularly on the wine growing side, to work in and to get clear, consistent results from these parcels of fruit.
And what do you think have been the biggest like learnings for you from almost like a business perspective over the years, like going through that whole journey?
Oh, don't farm fruit when you don't know what you're doing. Probably. Yeah, your car will smell like sulfur.
Yeah.
In the vineyard, from the vineyard, like stuff like that. But I guess from business perspective,
Well, just like I guess just going through that journey of, because I think there's been like parallels in our businesses over those times, and like what have been the biggest challenges for you to go through over the last decade or more in doing this, like very much on your own?
I think like moving from a phase where you're trying everything to actually not trying everything, and you're actually got enough experience to stop doing something or stop trying something for the sake of it. You actually, when you start to realize that the simplicities of wine are actually get you 90% of the way there, that's kind of the big change in mindset. And through this period, and then after when I went out on my own solely, around when this came out, that was still took a little bit, still transitioning to that phase, and probably pretty confident in what we're doing now, but that's probably the thing.
So this is Fruition's Pinot. You know, taste this. I don't think you tried it before, but it looks unreal. It looks so good. How are you feeling about the future of Woodlawn and Tonne Tasmania and these wines and the next? You said 30 years before. I love that. So what is that? What does the future look like for Ricky Evans?
I mean, it's a consistency thing. Like I said, we're still, chipping away at doing things simpler, and going forward, it's really important for me I want to keep growing more. Like a bigger component of what goes into our wines needs to come from our own vineyards. I think that's like a massive learning as well, like how much influence you have in terms of growing fruit. Like it's makes such a difference. And it's got us here. And so I sort of, want to continue going down that pathway for sure. Woodlawn as a brand is a really long-term project. I want those wines to always be like a heritage kind of feel, a timeless kind of energy behind this brand. We just released Traditional Method Sparkling. It's for the fancy wine. If you're going to have fancy wine, you need some fizz. And it's the top echelon of Tasmania. Like Tasmania makes, some of the greatest sparkling wines in the world, and Pinot and Chardonnay the same. So, that's the focus for that. It's quality reigns supreme, and, being a genuine, like, grower producer wines are the ones that excite me. And that's the place that we're in, but I want to be right in there for a long time.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Mate, thank you. Always so good to hang out. The wines look great. We've only touched on Pinot today. I think Pinot is a great vehicle to tell the story of Tonne Tasmania at Ricky Evans and Woodlawn and what you've done. Of course, there's great Chardonnays, there's great Rieslings, there's a few funky, skinsy things as well. But for me, one of the more complete and exciting Pinot projects on the island, like genuinely. So at all price points, always giving value. So well done. We're big fans. We love what you do. Thanks for coming on camera.
Well done
mate.
for you.
Did you have any questions?
Been around for the same time.
Did you have any questions for me? You said you asked some questions.
Yeah, when are you going to get an air conditioner?
We need to sell a few more pallets of Pinot. It's hot today. It's muggy. All right, man. Great. Cheers. Cool. Well done. Beer o'clock. Thanks for you. Cheers, guys.